a Saturday right before Christmas. This was a couple years ago. And I had just finished up kind of rinsing off dishes and getting the kitchen kind of reset after the boys had had breakfast. And I was walking towards the dining room in my house, which isn't just right around the corner from the kitchen. And I got to the bottom of this staircase and I literally like stopped in my tracks mid-stride. I just stopped and stood there. And the reason was because I was completely paralyzed by overwhelm. I was completely overwhelmed with two big impending projects that I needed to complete that day before we left for our Christmas vacation. I needed to finish Christmas cards and get them into the mail and into the post office so that they would arrive before Christmas. And I needed to finish a marketing project for the business, and both of those things needed to happen that Saturday. And when I say it now, it doesn't really sound like a lot, but in that moment, I completely froze because I was super, super overwhelmed with the daunting task of both of these two projects. And in that moment that I literally stopped in my tracks, I had a very vivid moment of clarity. I'm standing in this overwhelmed state, and it became so clear to me the two reasons that I was overwhelmed in that moment. And as I've mulled on those reasons over the last couple of years, they're really apply to any situation, in any circumstance, and anything that's on your to-do list. Overwhelm, I think, is caused by two things. And when we understand those two things, then we can get clarity on how to step through different scenarios and situations to help keep us from getting super overwhelmed. So what ended up happening that Saturday, I decided to do the Christmas cards first. I texted a couple people to get updated addresses. I had to send out a couple emails to get a few updated addresses, got them all ready to go, minus a handful that I finished later on in the day after all the addresses came back in. Got the Christmas cards done, sat down at the computer, got the marketing project done. Guess what happened? Both of them I was able to pull off without any particular issue. The reason that I got overwhelmed is twofold, and I think you'll be able to identify, and I'll share some different reasons or different examples as we move through this episode. The reason for the overwhelm in the moment is because I didn't know how to best prioritize, keyword here, I didn't know how to best prioritize. Second reason, I didn't know how long it was going to take to complete the marketing project, and I didn't know how long it was going to take to complete the Christmas cards. I had guesstimates in my mind of like, oh, it might take me like 2 or 3 hours to do the Christmas cards. It'd probably take a little longer for the project. I didn't know, however, and in that moment that I froze, it was so clear to me that I was having a hard time prioritizing these two particular tasks, and I didn't know how long each of these two tasks were going to take to complete. So I share all of this with you to help you better understand and identify the overwhelm that happens on the day-to-day and happens in your mind. So I want to define what overwhelm is so that we can all be on the same page as we move through the rest of this episode. I 100% believe that we can get through and around overwhelm when we understand it and we know what to look out for. So first, what is overwhelm? I like to define it as kind of the mental tornado of thoughts and feelings that swirls around in our minds, mostly related to tasks, sometimes circumstances, but it leads to paralysis, like I had in that moment where I froze. It can also lead to anxiety, even anxiety attacks. It can lead to depression. All of the things that kind of build up in our life create this swirl. And I think that we can maneuver in and around the swirl very strategically, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes. But the actual definition of overwhelm is feeling buried or you're drowning beneath a huge mass. And in the context that we're talking here, it's the mass of life, if you will. It's all of the things that are happening in and around our life. It's all of the things happening in and around our minds. It's all of the things happening in and around our family. It's all the things happening in and around our world. There's circumstances, right? And there are some of this we can control. Obviously, some of this we can't control, but I do think that we can practice and have discipline around this area to help us navigate that mental tornado a little bit more strategically and a little bit more intentionally. Let's identify a few of the things that can contribute to overwhelm, right? So there's relationship issues, important relationships in your life. There's physical illness, chronic pain, mental illness, a really demanding job, or just an intense time during your job. You're not eating well. There's money issues and fear that comes with that. Life changes, maybe a move, time in our schedule getting a little bit too overcrowded. Personal trauma is also definitely something that can contribute to the sort of mental overwhelm. And then, of course, things like not sleeping well, not drinking enough water, just simple things can contribute to all of that. We'll pile it all on, and all of a sudden we feel really out of balance and really out of whack. And what I think I want to share with you today is about how, when we understand that overwhelm is about our inability to prioritize specifically tasks and projects, and we're not sure how long things are going to take, when we can kind of get in and dig into sort of the root causes of things, making things worse, a little practice and a little bit of discipline, a lot of mental discipline, if you will, I think we can learn a better way to move through all of this. So intentional thinking and intentional planning is what's going to help you move around it. So the very first thing we need to know is we need to see it coming. I can feel it, and you can feel it. You're probably thinking of a time that you were recently overwhelmed. We feel it coming. And I 100% believe that we can choose the way we're going to respond to it. We can choose to take a disciplined and practical approach to moving through. Now, if it's a huge circumstance, probably going to need to get some help with that, but just on the minor things that come up in the day-to-day. I'm not talking about a major life change or something terrible or abuse or something like that. I'm talking about just like the overwhelm on the day-to-day. The soccer cleat's not in the right place, or you forgot to take dinner out of the freezer, or you didn't turn the oven on in time to preheat and bake, the hour that dinner needs to bake, or whatever. The little, the smaller circumstantial things that happen on the day-to-day, that's mostly what I'm talking about here. You can choose your response to, I forgot the iPad for this here video shoot. I chose to not freak out about it. I chose to get it, and then I chose to do other things while I was waiting, and then here we are now. So you can choose. I could have completely gotten myself into a tizzy and gotten frustrated and gotten myself off to the wrong foot before we got started here, but I chose not to. That's what I'm talking about, choices. Obviously, for things that are larger, there are feelings. You got to feel the feelings. Okay, don't hear me wrong here. But I do believe you can choose your response to the circumstances and situations, minor to even major. And of course, one of those responses would be for major. Please get help for major things in your life. Please do that for yourself. We start to be able to see it coming. We start to be able to create and think through a positive response to this circumstance or situation that's going to contribute to the overwhelm. And I think part of that, you just have to outthink yourself. You have to think yourself into the positive. Like I said, feel the feelings, process through those, whatever it means. I'm a talker, got to process through them. Some people, it's burning it off on the treadmill. Sometimes it's alone time, or going and hiding in your closet with a bowl of ice cream. I mean, not that I've done that, but whatever it is, let yourself feel the feelings. Those are very important. But I think at the same time, you can think your way through this. Then last is plan how you're going to get through this little spurt of tornado so that you can walk out on the other side of it quickly. So when all the things kind of pile on in your life, make a plan for how you're going to chip through these things one at a time. We're going to get there. I'm jumping way ahead of myself here. But if you can plan out and understanding that you need to prioritize the things that are causing your overwhelm, which one is going to get your attention first, you need to plan these things. You see where I'm going with this? We've talked about pie before. Here it is again. We're going to plan. We're going to take action. We're going to walk through and start knocking off these things, whether it's your long to-do list. Spoiler alert, your to-do list is never going anywhere. It will always be there, right? Have you ever gotten to the end of your to-do list? Ever? Because I have not, ever, in the last, 42 years. I mean, maybe when I was 6, I didn't have a big to-do list, but really I've never gotten to the end of it. It's always going to be there. So number 1 is accept that. And number 2 is take action and knock the things off your to-do list. One of my most favorite things to do is we have this great big HQ doc for all of our projects that we're working on. And I love taking things from Erin's list, putting them on the completed column. The completed column is getting very long, and it is it's so satisfying because I know that I have done that. Was I overwhelmed by that task at some point or that project? Possibly, but I did the work and I moved it to the completed column. Love that feeling. Beyond the planning and working through the list, there's also planning how you're going to navigate things before they happen. Can you identify certain trouble spots in your day or in your week or in your month? Is there a certain, time of the month? Maybe. Is there something that triggers you? If you can identify trigger points that happen that send you into this swirl, and I'm talking about predictable things. I'm not talking about unforeseen circumstances like, your house flooding. If you've heard my story, you know that about what's happened with us recently. But you can plan ahead and plan before these things happen, and when you can start to do that, you're then one step ahead of that overwhelm, and then you're going to get to that practicing of being, prioritizing and working through the items or the tasks or the project one at a time, and you'll feel less overwhelmed, and you'll be able to move through all of these different things very quickly and very easily. So we planned during the overwhelm, and we've planned ahead of the overwhelm. We've talked a little bit about working ourselves through that, and we'll get into goals in the next episode and dig a little bit more into what that looks like. But I also want you to take a step above yourself, if you will, after the overwhelm has settled out. After I was finished with the Christmas cards and that marketing project, later on in the day, I looked back and I thought, why did I feel this way? Was all that anxiety and angst that I had created really helpful? It actually hurt me that day. Actually, it brought me a lot of clarity that day, but it slowed me down and it kept me from working within my, to the best of my ability, if you will. So taking a step back after you've moved through it and looking back and evaluating, could I have done something differently? Do I need to make a note in my journal about, I'm actually really triggered by this or by that? And then you can then look at, okay, what can I do to avoid those triggers in the future or work smarter through them, because we can't avoid all triggers, right? So whatever those things are, if you take that minute to look back and evaluate, then you're setting yourself up for success when the mental tornado comes back, because it's going to come back, right? We just have to get smarter with how we prioritize and how we set aside time to complete the things that are contributing to our overwhelm. So the prioritizing piece takes a little bit of time and practice and discipline, and really what it is I mentioned this a minute ago, it's doing one thing at a time. Picking one of the things that you think has the highest priority and doing that thing, doing it to completion, and then doing the next one. This is a practice thing, it's a discipline thing, but I think awareness is really important, especially when we're in the moment. In that moment, I didn't know which of the two big tasks to prioritize. Which one should I do first? I did Christmas cards, and then I did the project, and I did them both well till the end. The second part of all of this really has more to do with time management and not really knowing how long things are going to take. And that just contributes to I'm not going to do that because it's going to take forever. I don't really think I'm going to have time to finish that today, so I'm not even going to start. I'm going to guess you've had both of those feelings at some point in the very recent past. So the first is we usually don't know how long something's going to take, and we overestimate how long it's going to take in our brains, right? Here's a perfect example. Way back in the day, I was dragging my feet before I filed my first ever business, official business. I was filing with the Secretary of State, and I was dragging my feet because I thought it was going to take like a whole day to do the research and find the paperwork and fill out the forms. And I didn't know what was involved in this particular task, which was also part of it. You don't know. So in your head, you make up all of these different reasons that this is going to take long, but you also don't know. So you don't know how long it's going to take, and you don't know you might not know what's involved in the task. Well, turns out it took me like, I don't know, 20 minutes to do that. One search, one download form, fill it out, mail it in with the check. Done. Literally, it took me like 20 minutes to do that. And in my head, I was thinking it was going to take an entire day. That's one example. Other examples of things that we think are going to take forever to do. And this could also be that we maybe just don't feel like doing them. But putting away the laundry, emptying the dishwasher. Both of these things are things that happen on the daily, at least at my house they do. And I know-ish how long it's going to take, but I don't know really how long it's going to take. And it's hard to slot that. It's hard to prioritize that as well. So that's a little bit of both prioritizing and not knowing, is this laundry folding and putting away going to be a 20-minute situation, or is there a giant mountain and it's going to be an hour-long situation, right? So it's hard to slot that, to prioritize and to know exactly how long that's going to take. Another concept that I want to share with you about time management is time blocking. This is something that has not only revolutionized my work and business life in the way that I time block and complete different tasks and projects, but it's also spilled over into my just life, and it has been so helpful. Here's a perfect example. When paperwork comes home from the school. Now, I'm not talking about like the first of the year paperwork where that's like you really need a couple hours to sit down and do it all. Just papers that come home from the school, whether it's like a picture form, or it's signing up for something, or it's looking through some meeting notes that for the PSO, or like whatever it is. School paperwork is a Wednesday evening project for me. So anytime school paperwork comes in, it goes in the pile, and I know I will take care of that on Wednesday night. So when I can take a time block and attach a task to it, or a general task, in this case, school paperwork, then I don't have to think about, oh, right, I need to get that done. Oh, I haven't finished that. When is it due? Obviously, if it's due before Wednesday, I'll do it before Wednesday. But generally, things don't need to happen that quickly with school paperwork. So it's just one of those things that I have just sort of mentally slotted. This is when these things happen, and I don't have to have that running scenario happening in the back of my mind of, you're just not getting that done. The teachers are gonna, wonder what's wrong with you because you can't get anything completed on time, or you forget to turn stuff in. It's not just your kid who has a problem turning in homework, it's now you too. No, I'm just kidding. But the idea is that you know when you're going to do these certain things. So if there's a category of tasks, school paperwork is one I thought of, that you're doing on the regular, then do that. Perfect example, Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and so we need to do, the kids are going to make cards for their classmates. When is that going to happen? Wednesday night, right? That's the school paperwork. So I don't have to freak out about the fact that we already have all these other things going on this week, and now we have to do school Valentine's cards, right? So having sort of a mental way to slot, like, okay, these are the time blocks that I have in my day. You have more of them than you think, by the way. And then you just start putting things into those slots so that you don't have to have those thoughts running in the back of your mind that you're not getting the things done that you need to get done. Another example of this is from my work. I am one of the co-founders of the $5 meal plan, and we release new meal plans every single week on Fridays. And for the last 5 years, every Thursday morning is $5 meal plan morning. Even if I'm traveling, I will figure out a way to do the tasks that I need to do for the $5 meal plan on Thursday mornings. It is one of those things that happens on a very routine basis. So if you have something that's routine, give it its own time, and then you don't have to think about, okay, when am I going to get the $5 meal plan stuff set up for this week and next week? When am I going to do that? I never have that thought because it always happens on Thursday mornings. I share these concepts and ideas about time management because I really think it's important that, one, we need to better understand how long something's going to take before we let it become part of the mental overwhelm. If that's a quick Google search while you're right when you wake up in the morning or as you're going to bed tonight, like figure out really quickly, is this really, if I had just searched filing the Secretary of State business paperwork, I would have figured out real quickly it was only going to take 20 minutes, but I didn't do that. Instead, I let it spin out of control in my mind. So learning how long something's really going to take. Part of that's research, part of that's just practice. You know, the laundry, for example, sometimes it takes longer than others, but in general, we know how long that kind of task is going to take. And then also using time blocks to your advantage and being able to kind of categorize different tasks that you have and putting them into a time block so that it's not swirling around in your mind. I love to talk about 3 ways. 3 ways to do everything. 3 simple steps. 3 ways that you can start to cut overwhelm just right now. We've talked a lot about strategy and just overarching concepts that you can kind of think about and integrate into your life, but I want to talk now about 3 ways to cut the overwhelm right now. And one of them is something I've shared before, but I'm going to say it again because I think we need to all preach this to ourselves. So I'm going to preach it to you now, and that is to say no. Say no more often. Here are 2 examples of things that I just say no to because I just can't. I've done them in the past and I just can't right now. Don't throw tomatoes at me. Don't get all judgy on me because I've done this in the past. I'm just not doing it right now. I'll probably do it again in the future. I don't do the box tops for the school. I see it all the time in our groups, our school groups and Facebook and whatnot. I just can't. We have a few products that we do buy that we could do for box tops, but it's just one thing right now that I am saying no to. There are other ways that I support our school, and for right now, it's just not going to be one because that is too much for me right now. Second, we get these, the kids play basketball with a little church league, and they get these little stars that you're supposed to like just iron on and iron on. It's really not that big of a task. I know exactly how long it would take, but I can't keep up with the stars, so I've just decided we're not doing the stars. They're going to be okay without the stars. They got the star in the moment. They got the praise in the moment. They don't need the star on their shirt. The boys are going to be fine. So that's another example. Something very small that I'm just not doing because it's going to contribute to the overwhelm that's, with all the other things going on. Those are just 2 simple things that I'm choosing right now to not to be a part of. Again, don't throw tomatoes. That was step 1. Step 2, stop trying to do 4 things at once. Just stop. You've probably heard this before, maybe not. Stop doing 4 things at once. Do 1 thing at a time. This goes back to prioritizing. When you can prioritize and do the 1 thing, prioritize and do the 1 thing, prioritize and do the 1 thing, just do the 1 thing right now that's right in front of you that needs your attention the most. And with time and discipline and practice, you'll get better at prioritizing all the different things. So if you have little ones, it might be that you're prioritizing whoever is screaming the loudest. Okay, that's good. Take care of their needs, then move on to the next thing, then move on to the next thing, and then make dinner, and then move on to the next thing, whatever they might be, right? So with time, I do believe, and some discipline and practice, you can create a better way of prioritizing in the moment, at the moment to moment level. You're probably a little tired of hearing me talk about prioritize, but I keep saying it because I think as human beings, we're not really naturally good at prioritizing. I've done a lot of studying of personalities, and there's really not a personality type that's naturally great at prioritizing. And that's why I think it's so important that we understand how it works, and then we get to take the time to practice and become disciplined with it so that we can do better, so that we can, going back to all we've talked about, we can have it all. We can create smooth kind of function in our life, and we can live life to our fullest. And we can do that when we prioritize and we do it with great intention. The third thing that we can do to quickly cut overwhelm is to automate things. And I wish that we could automate the laundry, like with like a fairy or something, although I think I've seen something about robots or machines that fold things. But really, we need to automate things in our life that we can. So here's an example from our life: shoes. we have a lot of shoes. There's 6 of us. The boys have school shoes, they have athletic shoes, they have their like sports season shoes. And so we have baskets for the different shoes, and they have been well trained in putting their shoes back in the right basket, their belts as well with the shoes for school. And we've automated the shoes, if you will. So we very rarely have a, Mom, I can't find my whatever. It happens on occasion, but not that often anymore because we've automated the way shoes work. And I share shoes is because that's something that we all wear at some point every single day. And so if there's something that you can automate, you're going to want to do that. And we've talked before about dinner. For us, Mondays and Thursdays, our dinner is pretty much automated. It's a freezer to slow cooker, freezer to Instant Pot meal, because I know that those days are just hard for me. So I've automated dinner in that sense. So saying no, doing one thing at a time, and automate things in your life that are easy to automate, and then continue to add different things just depending on, what's happening in your day-to-day world. So I share all of this about prioritizing and time management and working towards cutting out the overwhelm to help you live more intentionally, to help you live more fully, and ultimately to help you be the very best version of yourself. So moving on, as we wrap up here, I want you to think, this is our think part, think about the last time you kind of got to that point of overwhelm. You were almost like you froze in your tracks, like I did that one day. Maybe it was this morning, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was last week, whatever. But think about it. Did you get through it? How well did you get through it? Yes, you come out of it. We always do. But what was it like? Like, how can you get through it more smoothly, like we've been talking about here today? That's what I want you to think about. And the feelings that go along with kind of navigating the overwhelm, I think the best one is probably organized chaos is the one that first comes to mind. The second one is just controlled or maybe smooth. Things just feel smooth. You feel the overwhelm coming on, you work yourself through it, you prioritize things, you do the one thing, you decide, oh, I need to automate this for later so I don't have to think about this, right? So you want to feel, can't always be in control. Don't hear me wrong, but you want things to be organized even amidst the chaos. Do you want things to be controlled even within the overwhelm? So those are the feelings that I want you to be thinking about, working towards, and moving through as you think about this particular aspect of intentional living. Last, take action. I want you to write something down 10 times. I want this to become your mantra for the next time that you find yourself either approaching or in the middle of one of these sort of mental tornadoes, if you will, the overwhelm that kind of quickly leads to paralysis or anxiety. So I want you to write this down. Do one thing. I can do this. Simple. Do one thing. I can do this. If you can make that your mantra, I'm wanting you to write it down so you can process it, right? Get it in there. I think writing it down, the research shows that that helps with that. So do one thing and I can do this are going to help you as you navigate through the next time in an hour from now. I don't know when that will be. Whenever this is going to happen in your life again, you'll be able to move through it more smoothly because you're going to do one thing and you can do it, right? So I want that to become your mantra. Finally, please subscribe. I want you to get future episodes of the Erin Chase Show. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe on YouTube. You can also subscribe on your podcast player. Also, please leave a comment, rate, review, come find me on social media. Let me know how the show is helping you, and also let me know how we can better serve you. We love to hear from you, and we want to get ideas for how we can bring new episodes, make it better, and speak more about intentional living into your life. That is all for this 5th episode of the Erin Chase Show. I would like to say bye for now, and we'll talk again soon.